Welcome to Module 3, where we get to explore summer. This is really the season that we have been waiting for. It is what we have done so much spring cleaning to try to reach, and it was worth it. Summer is a glorious time. It really is the very best that our family can be, where people are feeling connected, they are laughing, they are together and wanting to be together, right? There is no more of the frostiness of winter where people were huddled up in their own rooms away from everyone else. No, in summer we are together, we are laughing and building memories together, and it is light, easy, and a beautiful time. So let's think about what summer looks like for your family. Summer is when you may feel happy to be all together, fully present and engaged. So you aren't torn in multiple directions. You really are present and engaged in your family. You're confident that you can work together to do anything, whether it's a cleaning project around your family, or you're building a treehouse, or you're going on a road trip. You're confident you can do it together and stay connected. You're forgiving of small and minor inconveniences or irritations that might have set you off in winter. When you're in summer, there's a lot of grace and space. There is a lot of room for people to make mistakes, because you know at the very end, you believe that they are good people and they want to have a good family experience. So there is no distrust and there's no suspicion of ulterior motives. It's just a person making a mistake, and we all do that. And in summer, we are much more forgiving of those mistakes. And we're willing to help them out in any way. So in summer, when our child needs some support in some way, we're more apt to say yes. We're like, yeah, sure, I can totally help you do this. Yeah, let's go figure that out. There is a partnership and a collaboration that happens that is unlike other seasons. Similarly, your child has very fond experiences in summer. So they're happy to be with you, which as your children get older, you'll know that's a rare occasion sometimes, but they want to be with you. They want to seek your advice or ask you questions about maybe when you were a child, or maybe experiences with your parents. When they start asking about questions like that, you are definitely in summer, because in winter and even in spring, they don't want to know about you and your hardships growing up and, walking 2 miles uphill to school every day in the snow. They're not interested. But when the relationship is in summer, they actually find joy to not only experience stories of them when they were a child, but stories of your life when you were a child. They're excited to be part of family activities, whether it's board game night or building a shed in the backyard. They want to be included, right? They want to be a part of that, both as a contributor and as a beneficiary. So there is an excitement to do things together. And as an extension, they're just more helpful around the house. So when they ask you for help, you're more apt to say yes. When your relationship is in summer and you need their help, they're more apt to say yes. So whether it's, hey, can you help me make a pan of brownies? They're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's awesome, let's do that. Or, hey, I'm gonna go to the garden center and buy some new flowers. Can you come and help me? In summer, they will most likely say yes, because the experience of being with you is enough for them to want to be continuing to be with you. So they will say yes to those experiences. Let's think about summer for you personally, because everyone experiences summer in the same general way. There is a lightness, a happiness, just this beautiful contentment. But the inner workings of summer, it's different for all of us. So let's talk about summer for you specifically. When you are in summer, how do you feel? Like, what are the feelings and the thoughts when you are in the most connected place with your child? Go ahead and write that in your workbook. The next question I want you to consider is, what are the things that bring you to summer in the first place, right? What are the things that you can say, this brings me to my happy place? And I'm not talking about wine o'clock or, beer on Tuesdays. I'm talking about things that bring you real contentment with your child, right? Real connection, real bonding. What are those things that bring you together, that you can count on bringing you together? A shared love, a shared passion, a shared interest. What are the things that get you there? And what do you notice when your family is in summer? Like, what's the general vibe, right? If you're an adventurous family, perhaps in summer, everyone is really anxious to go hiking and go kayaking and go to the beach and, take a walk and go to these new places. Or maybe if you're a creative and artistic family, in summer it's buying new materials and, creating something in a new way. Trying, epoxy art or alcohol ink dyeing or tie-dye, right? Maybe it's drawing on this new paper, right? So think about your family vibe and what does it look like when you're all in summer together? Now we know we all have individual summer experiences, and I want you to think about your child's summer experience. Even if they're very young, you already can tell things that make them happy. You can already see the things they do to bring themselves joy, because we're hardwired for that. We're hardwired to go towards things that bring us pleasure or happiness and connection with others. So when you notice your child is very happy, what are they doing? And what is it for them to experience happiness and joy? What brings them to summer? This next slide is going to look intense. I totally know. It's really just designed to show you there are limitless ways to foster happiness and joy. And as we talked about in spring, being happy is a personal responsibility. You cannot make your child happy. You can create opportunities for them to experience happiness, and you can provide tools or toys or resources for them to explore happiness, but ultimately happiness is on them, right? And so I want you just to look at this list and think of what ways you can create in your family to foster happiness, because they ultimately will pick the things that they love. If they're very kinesthetic and mechanical, happiness might be building Legos or creating popsicle stick bridges or doing something with Play-Doh or building towers and structures out of wood or branches outside. If your child is more into softer things and fabric arts, maybe they want to sew things, maybe they want to create clothes for their dolls, or maybe they want to sew pillowcases for everyone for Christmas, right? So when you know what your child finds summer in, you can help foster that. So this list, although huge, really is just to kind of give you some ideas of ways that you can foster a love of pursuing happiness for your child. Because yes, we want them to be able to find work and be successful in the world, but we want them to know happiness. And we want them to know that they are responsible for their happiness. So when they are in winter, they can spring clean the way they need to and really get themselves to a place of joy and contentment and grace and peace and happiness, right? Summer is a personal commitment. And when our children know that, and they know the things that help them feel joy, they can pursue those things more frequently. They can have the art supplies on hand. They know they have these 5 recipes that really just bring them so much joy. They can create that and bring themselves back to a state of joy. So our next slide is really just brainstorming a little bit, looking at that bigger list. What are some of the ways that you go back to summer? What are the things that bring you that kind of joy? Now, I know not one thing can bring you joy all the time. Nothing is ironclad and guaranteed, but there are probably some things that you know that you can count on to just bring you back to that place of like higher vibration, right? Like where your high vibe is. So get you out of the funk, get you out of that dark place, get you out of the doubt or the worry or the sadness or the fear, and just kind of remind you of joy. For some people, that's dancing and music, and they put on the music and they just feel it and they go back to their happy place. For some people, it's traveling, right? Going up into the mountains or going out on the water, canoeing on a lake, and that is their happy place. So on this slide in your workbook, I want you to think about what are 10 ways for both you, everyone in your family, and your children, where they know, if I do this, I'm most likely going to come out of my funk. I'm not going to go back to winter because I know I can do these things and really feel summer. So take a few minutes and brainstorm some of those ways. When we talk about things that make us happy, we really want to get to a state of bliss, right? Where time and space feel a little bit suspended and we're just so good, so good. One of the powerful ways that you can connect with your child is to really help them foster a love of finding their own summer. And one of the ways to do that is to really create a bliss list. So yes, we just created our 10 ideas, but they all might be similar in the structure, or they might all fall in the same realm of happiness. And I want to challenge you a little bit to stretch. And so one of the ways we're going to do that is through creating our bliss list. And a bliss list is really an opportunity to think about all of the senses that you have. And I know it has been a very long time since we've thought about the 5 senses. So I've put up a slide for you. But we want to write down something that we can see that brings us incredible joy. That might be art in a gallery. That might be a garden full of flowers. That might be anything that you can really just see with your eyes and be transported to another place, another time, another feeling, right? Maybe it's old photographs of your family. Maybe it's home movies when your kids were younger, right? Think about your bliss in terms of the things that you can see. And on the chart in your workbook, there's a line for each of the people in your family, and you can make copies. And if you have more people than 3 in your family, please, by all means, have everybody do this activity. The next category are things you hear. So what are things that you can hear that really touch you deep in the soul and just make you happy? It most likely will be some sort of music. But what kind of music? Maybe it's, really soulful jazz, or maybe it's, I don't know, disco music from the 70s. Whatever it is for you, write it down. Know what makes you happy, because there will be times when the storms are blowing through and you need to say, actually, I'm choosing something different. I want to be in summer. I want to stay in summer. The next thing we talk about is things that you can taste. So some people just have a recipe that takes them back to a time when they were little and grandma used to make, this special oatmeal or baked this kind of bread. What are things that you can taste that just take you back and fill you to the deepest core of yourself? Write that there. The next category is things you touch. So what is it that you can touch that just makes you very happy, right? Maybe it is some sort of fabric. Maybe it is the hand of a loved one. Maybe it is, you know, your beautiful silk wedding dress that you still have and just taking you back to those moments. What is it that you can touch that brings you bliss? The next category is smell. So essential oils are a massive multi-billion-dollar industry for exactly that reason. The power of smell is often underrated, and yet it is an extremely effective way of bringing us back to calm, to happiness, to balance, to peace, to a moment of zen, right? It might just be some citrus smell that takes you back to when you used to visit your grandparents', you know, ranch and they grew orange trees, right? It could just be anything that takes you to a place where you can close your eyes and remember the feeling of being in absolute paradise. How do you do that? Through smell. And then the last category on your bliss list is what you remember. Like, what are the memories that just take you back to those moments of absolute happiness, like your top 5 happiest moments of your life? What are those memories? Do you have pictures or movies about them? Have you written a story or journaled about those experiences? Like, what are the memories that fill you with so much joy when you look back, you think, that was one of the happiest times of my life? When we have this bliss list, we have benefits, right? We can always go back to these things. Some of them are easier to recreate than others, of course, but we have the power of our imagination. For our kids, though, they haven't lived long enough to have an entire lifetime like we have of experiences to draw from. But it's important to help them see that there is possibility for bliss in lots of ways. So even if they're a little second grader and they think, I'm only 7, I haven't had as many opportunities as you. That's true. Or they haven't had as many opportunities as their older brother. That's also true. But in their own experience, up until that point, they can think of something that made them feel so happy. Maybe it was a birthday cake at a party. They had never had an ice cream cake before and it blew their mind. That would be something that they tasted that they could put on their bliss list. And I'm not saying whenever they're sad or whenever winter is coming, they need to go have ice cream cake. But it is a way to identify, you know what? There are many things in our life that we are super grateful for and we are thankful for experiencing. And oftentimes we can go back in our mind, if not in real life, and capture that moment of bliss again. It's kind of like when you are in summer and you go out to the fields and you pick your own strawberries. So you come home and you have tons of strawberries and you can't possibly eat them all. So you clean them and you take care of them, whatever that is, dethrone their little green parts, and you put them in jams. So yes, 4 months later in November, you're not really eating the same strawberries that you had, but you can close your eyes and you can remember being in the field and you can put the jam on your bread and remember the feeling of how incredible those sweet, sweet strawberries were. It's not exactly the same, but in your mind, you can go back and relive that moment of bliss. So this way of writing down what our bliss ideas are is a way of doing that. It is canning and making jam, right, of our experiences. So we can go back at any time and say, I want to relive that moment. I want to smell that apple pie again. My grandmother had a way of making apple pie with these secret ingredients, which now I know what they are, but when I smell them, it takes me right back, right? That is the power of knowing your bliss. So finish filling out the chart because this is something you are going to want to refer to. So we are at the end of summer. What did we cover in summer? I mean, summer is just such an amazing place. Summer is an amazing place. And so in this module, we learned about what summer looks like for you, right? It's going to be different than what it is for me. It's going to be different from other people in your own family. And that's the power of knowing your seasons. When you know your summer and everybody knows their own summer, you can find the place to which those converge. And you say, you know what? This is how our family can experience summer. Because I love the beach, you love snorkeling, you love sailing, and you love building things. So I know what kind of vacation we can have where we can all experience the things that bring us the most pleasure. You aren't necessarily going to find a cabin in the forest because those don't really hit those bliss pieces. Now you can and find amazing opportunities to explore and expand your bliss list. But bliss really just helps guide us to make decisions to say, you know what, I can count on this. I know this music makes me happy. I know baking bread and the whole process of getting in there and kneading it and waiting for it to rise and baking it is almost spiritual, and that brings me bliss. So you can go back to those things and keep adding new ones. Don't get stuck. Don't stop expanding, but you know that you can count on those things. So what did we learn about creating happiness, right? It's a choice. Happiness doesn't just fall from the sky. And it doesn't matter if you're a half glass empty or a half glass full person. It's a choice. And we can decide, even in really hard times, is there a sliver of a silver lining? Is there something I can glean from this? Because I want to choose summer. Even in the storms, I want to look for the rainbow, right? Even in the storms, I want to see where the sun just cracks through the storm clouds and this glorious rainbow shows up, or these sun rays burst through. That is kind of magical. So knowing that you're in control of summer allows you to find the magic and recreate it and choose to stay there for as long as you can. Now, we can't always stay in summer. It isn't a perpetual, superficial state of fakeness. No, summer is a real place, but the other seasons are real too. And sometimes when we get so carried away with our happiness and so in love with our wonderful life, we miss the next season popping up because it's a little bit sneaky. And so I can't wait to talk to you about the next season.